Hello and welcome back to the NFL DFS slate breakdown for the Giants versus the Steelers Monday Night Football. We got a good one here on the 28th of October. It's going to be a fun slate. I am your host, Tyler, at FlatTyler83 on Twitter and on your DFS sites. Now, let's dig into it. Before we do, come join us at LineStar. $39.99 per month gets you access to all we do, all the props, all the DFS. You get it all, one low price. Now, we're mainly going to go over DraftKings, but we will cover a little of the FanDuel as well. Starting position by position with quarterback, we got Russell Wilson, Daniel Jones. Should also be said that Fields is actually questionable, so he and it's a hamstring issue. So I know they talked a little bit about using Fields in certain spots. If that's the case, they may not even use him at all. But I digress. Russell Wilson played a great game last time out. He had a rushing touchdown, had 2 passing touchdowns for 264 yards. Now he's against the Giants. That that pass defense isn't that great. However, their rush defense is good, so makes some sense to want to go with Russell Wilson in this spot. Then we get over to Daniel Jones, who is pretty much the same price. We have him for almost 3 points less projected, coming in way less owned as he should be. Daniel Jones in a very tough spot here versus the Steelers. Decent likelihood that he, gets sacked a couple times, is under pressure a lot, and he's not the best quarterback in those situations. Also, his main man, Neighbors, is probably going to be covered by Porter, which just doesn't spell a bunch of success for this Giants passing game, so I am a little worried. However, the Giants will likely have to pass a ton, so there's a little upside, and we have the Daniel Jones rushing upside, which helps a little bit, adding a couple points there. If he gets a rushing touchdown, then, it starts to look very usable for sure. And on to the running backs. All right, Najee Harris, 54% owned, as he should be. The one thing I do want to point out is that Jaylen Warren has been getting healthier all season long. He came into the season hurt, then missed a couple games due to the injury. Now he's finally starting to get a little healthier. So maybe there is the split that we were expecting to see still coming, and that Najee's going to lose a little more workload to Warren. So that is one thing in the Warren cap, that I think is a little interesting when he's going low owned and a little bit cheaper. But you got to like Najee. The one issue is that the Giants have been decent versus running backs. Now, Najee Harris, the last few games has looked very, very good. Does that keep going? I don't know. We've seen a very, up and down Najee Harris so far this year. I'm absolutely fine using Najee. We know what Arthur Smith wants to do. He wants to run the ball, wants to use the running backs, and you got to like Najee for this. Now, getting to the Giants side, we have Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary came back from injury last game, but only had 6 touches. He only played 21% of the snaps. So I'm not totally sure if this is the new plan with Singletary, where he is the RB2, or if it's just they were easing him in to a game which the Eagles just stomped on them. And so they're like, why push Singletary? We have Tracy, who's the better receiving back anyways. So I think it's an interesting thing to kind of look at. Now, Tracy, he's definitely the better receiving back, and Pittsburgh has been susceptible to running back dump-offs. 5 receptions for 45 yards is what they're giving up. 5 for 54 over the last 4. I think Tyrone Tracy on DraftKings at 4,400 is super interesting. We don't know how this workload is going to break down yet. We only have a 1-game sample size, and it was an absolute blowout. So you can kind of throw that out. Also, Singletary was coming off the injury. So it's really hard to figure out here. I don't mind some Singletary because he's so low owned. There is a chance that he is just the RB1 and it goes back to him working, 70% and Tracy being a third down or, blowout dump off specialist. We don't really know how that is going to break down. Both guys are interesting. On FanDuel, where Tracy is so much cheaper, on DraftKings, where Tracy is so much cheaper, I love Tracy. On FanDuel, however, Tracy is more expensive than Devin Singletary. So there is a bigger decision here to make which guy you want to go to. Tracy is a little more explosive, but we have no clue what the Giants are really going to do with this backfield yet. So make some bets on it, understand the possibilities with playing time, and go from there. Najee Harris is absolutely the most consistent one in this back. And then on FanDuel at 9,500, Jaylen Warren, who we know is an explosive guy out of the backfield. 14 touches last week, the most he's had all season long, is a little interesting. It goes to my thinking of, the guys finally getting healthy, and having some Warren pivots at low ownership is pretty interesting to me. All right, getting over to the wide receiver. We got George Pickens, 63% owned. He should be the highest owned. He is the highest owned. Dory Jackson's likely out for the Giants. Pickens had his best game of the year with Russell Wilson last game. Does that continue? We are going to find out. I think Pickens is absolutely an interesting spot. He's got to get big-time targets in this offense because outside of him, there's just really not that much consistency besides the RBs and tight ends. So Pickens definitely interesting. Malik Neighbors. Dude's been an absolute beast so far this year. I got a big-time worry in this matchup, though. Joey Porter Jr. is on the other side. He's going to match up with Neighbors. Literally all the Steelers need to do, rush the passer and double-team Neighbors. Make somebody else do it. And I don't think the Giants can beat you if somebody else has to do the work. So we know that's going to be the game plan for the Steelers. I think they can definitely slow or stop Neighbors. Joey Porter Jr. is a beast of a corner. It's an interesting matchup to watch all game, but I don't think it's going to spell big-time goodness for Malik Neighbors. Then you got Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton. Both of them are going to be out there running a lot of routes, on the field a lot. Both are interesting, but both are pretty much punt plays. Wan'Dale Robinson is going to get the targets. We see it game in and game out. But the yards, touchdown, all that, I don't know. On a site like DraftKings where it's point per reception, he is absolutely interesting because he can get double digits almost any game. But ceiling opportunities, few and far between with Wan'Dale Robinson. So that is the worry there. Slayton does have, some ceiling, but can also give you 2 points, and will likely give you under 5 in over 50% of the games he plays. Calvin Austin is a nice, just big play threat, and that's really all he is. Van Jefferson's going to be out there a lot, but very little ceiling. He needs to catch a touchdown to be optimal. And then after that, we're pretty much off all of the receivers. On FanDuel side, Malik Neighbors, 16.5K. That's wild to me. I'm not going there, or I will have very little of him with that. George Pickens is definitely my number one. And then, I don't know if you necessarily even need receivers in this matchup today on FanDuel. Pickens is the one that I will have a decent amount of. Everybody else, probably very, very little. Now, getting over to tight end. 2,400, Theo Johnson is the highest owned tight end on the slate at 28%. I think he is very interesting this slate. 25th over the last 4 versus the tight end for Pittsburgh. They're allowing 54 yards, 6.5 receptions over that span. He's only 2,700. He's playing last two games like 90% of the snaps. He is getting more and more involved in this offense. He's 6'6". He's athletic. They're going to be passing a lot. He's going to be running some routes. And I think Theo is an interesting, cheap pivot option, which, has touchdown upside. Pat Freiermuth, always in consideration. The one thing you got to look at, though, is the Giants have been very tough versus tight ends. Connor Hayward has also been involved a little bit, but very, very little, as has been Darnell Washington. 4 for 36 last game, has had, a couple targets all game. He is a pretty athletic beast. It's just, he's the second pass-catching tight end on this team, so it's really touchdown or bust for him. Rest of the tight ends, I'm pretty much out on. And with that, let's move it on to defense. It's Steelers or bust for me here. I think Russell Wilson does well enough to take care of the football that I don't really want to pick on that Giants defense or use that Giants defense. It's been very solid, though. I got to give you that. So with that, it's at least in consideration, but definitely not a focal point. I do think the Steelers defense can get after this quarterback, create some sacks, create some havoc, get some turnovers. And with that, you firmly need to consider the Steelers. Unfortunately, everybody else is too. A defense going 50% owned is too high for me, especially at 5,400. So I'm probably not going to have much, but I am interested in them. Getting over to the kicker spot, both are firmly entrenched. I would say Boswell is where I would have my most interest. We've seen some huge ceilings out of him in other games. I think there is a very high likelihood that the Steelers offense struggles when it gets onto the opponent area of the football or of the field. And with that, there is a ceiling for Boswell. I think the Steelers aren't going to struggle really to move the ball, but I think they may struggle when it comes down to the red zone area. With that, Boswell's firmly entrenched. Greg Joseph, he's had one big game. Everything else has been kind of meh. I think the Giants might have trouble moving the ball, and that is my worry. Joseph is in play, but, it's a 37-point total, and Giants are 6-point underdogs. So Vegas is saying there's going to be very, very little scoring on the Giants side, which makes me not really want to use Joseph much at all. And that will do it for us today. Quick one, ran over both sides and just broke it down. Really pricing difference. The main thing between FanDuel and DraftKings today, pricing-wise, is this running back situation between Singletary and Tracy. So really using the DraftKings talk, you can figure out what you want to do on FanDuel as well. Hope you guys have a good one. Let's make some money. I'll see y'all later this week. Peace.